We have talked about the lightweights, the Cessna 172 and the Piper Cherokee. Those are fine airplanes for learning how to fly. But when you need to haul a family of 4 full bags and enough fuel to cross a state line, you need to graduate. You need a heavy hauler. You need the Ford F-150 and the Chevy Silverado of the sky. You need big-bore 6-cylinder engines like the Continental O-470 and the Lycoming O-540 that drink gas and spit out torque. This is Cessna 182 versus Piper Dakota. Which heavy hauler is the ultimate flying tank? In the red corner, we have the Cessna 182 Skylane, the most popular high-performance airplane in history, built by the legends at Textron Aviation. It is the station wagon that built General Aviation. In the blue corner, we have the Piper Dakota, the forgotten muscle car that claims it can lift a staggering 1,300 pounds of useful load, outclimb, and outrun the Cessna legend. One is famous, the other is a secret beast. But only one can handle the punishing reality of backcountry flying. So, which keys do you want in your pocket when the runway is short, the constant speed propeller is biting the air, and the plane is heavy? Crank the starter and you feel it in your boots. The Cessna 182's Continental O-470 wakes up with a slow, burbling rumble, like an old tractor warming up in the barn. The prop spins, the whole airframe shivers, and there is a low, honest vibration, steady, unhurried, all business. It is the sound of a machine built for work, not for show. Every throttle push brings a deep, throaty bark, more farm truck than sports car. You can hear the pistons pulling air, the exhaust note flat and unrefined. It is not trying to impress anyone, it is just ready to haul. Switch over to the Dakota, and the Lycoming O-540 comes alive with a different kind of attitude. The starter kicks, and there is a sharper, quicker bite. The Dakota does not just idle, it pulses. The exhaust is deeper, almost angry, with a rolling thunder that says there is more muscle hiding under the hood than you would expect from a low-wing Cherokee. The whole plane vibrates with a heavier beat, smoother at idle, but with a snarl when you push up the manifold pressure. It is the sound of a muscle car idling at a stoplight, waiting for green. You do not need a spec sheet to feel the difference. The 182's engine is all about steady pull, like a 4-wheel drive crawling up a muddy hill. The Dakota's O-540 feels ready to leap, torque loaded and waiting. In the cockpit, every lever, every vibration, every note from the exhaust tells you what kind of truck you are driving. This is not just horsepower, it is personality and torque. Before we get to numbers, you already know which one is the farmhand and which one is the wolf in sheep's clothing. Torque is where the story gets real. The Cessna 182's Continental O-470 is like an old-school V8, steady, not flashy, but it will pull a stump out of the ground all day. You set the prop to 2,400 RPM, shove in the throttle, and the manifold pressure needle climbs. That is 230 horsepower at work, but more important is the way it delivers. Flat torque, plenty of low-end grunt, and it never feels in a hurry. The 182's 3-blade constant speed prop is designed for bite, not bragging rights. It grabs thick air, especially on takeoff, and turns that slow-turning muscle into steady forward pull. You get about 385 pound-feet of torque at 2,200 RPM, enough to move a full load off a short strip, but you will feel every pound you add. Now, the Dakota's Lycoming O-540 is cut from different cloth. This is the big block Chevy of the air, 235 horsepower, 541 cubic inches, and a torque curve that peaks early and stays strong. Push the throttle in, and the manifold pressure jumps. At 2,200 RPM, you are getting over 400 pound-feet of torque. That is where the Dakota's reputation as a sleeper comes from. The 2-blade prop is tuned for speed and acceleration, not just brute force. It will spin up faster, and the O-540's extra displacement means you get more push at lower RPM, especially when the air gets thin and the runway gets short. Both props are constant speed, so you can dial in the sweet spot for takeoff or cruise, but the Dakota's lower power loading, 12.8 pounds per horsepower, versus the 182's 13.5, means it claws off the line with more authority. That is not just numbers on a chart. Watch the manifold pressure and RPM overlays, and you will see the Dakota builds thrust earlier and keeps it longer. It is the difference between a farm truck and a muscle car, and you feel it when you are heavy, hot, and trying to get out of a tight spot. You do not just want horsepower, you want torque that gets to the ground. That is what these props and engines are built to do. Picture a battered shop bench and a pile of gear. This is where airplane bragging ends and the real test begins. The useful load is not a number you find in a brochure. It is what you can actually haul when the tanks are full, the seats are filled, and the boss is hollering for one more bag. That is the game for a working pilot. The scale does not care about paint jobs or polished spinner cones, it only cares about pounds and ounces. Start with 4 big guys, call it 800 pounds of passengers, no lightweights here. Toss in 100 pounds of bags, duffels, toolboxes, maybe a set of golf clubs wedged in the back. That is 900 pounds before you even think about fuel. But fuel is not free, and avgas weighs 6 pounds a gallon. Fill the Dakota's tanks to 72 gallons, and you are looking at 432 pounds of fuel. The Cessna 182, with its big 88-gallon tanks, comes in at 528 pounds when topped off. That is a lot of weight before the prop even turns. But nobody flies max fuel with a full load of meat and gear. In the real world, you compromise. Maybe 50 gallons in the tanks, 300 pounds, buys you enough range to get home without running the tanks dry. Now the math gets tight. Add up the people, the bags, the fuel, and you are staring at numbers that make even the Dakota's beefy useful load start to sweat. The 182, you are counting every pound, maybe leaving bags behind or telling your cousin to take the next flight. This is not just arithmetic. It is the difference between bringing everyone and everything or leaving something on the ramp. That is why useful load matters, and why every pound counts when the scale tips. Put both airplanes on the scales and let the numbers do the talking. The Cessna 182, the old reliable, rolls up with a useful load that usually lands somewhere around 1,150 pounds. That is the official figure in most pilots' operating handbooks, but any working pilot knows it can drop lower once you bolt on a few extras, like an autopilot, bigger radios, maybe a long-range tank. Still, that is a lot of groceries, tools, or fishing gear. But then, the Dakota steps up, and the game changes. The pilot's operating handbook for the Piper Dakota lists 1,350 pounds, sometimes even a hair more if you have a clean one. That is not just a paper number, it is a real-world edge you can measure in full fuel, fat passengers, and heavy duffels that do not get left behind. Picture the scale tipping, the pointer swinging past the 182's mark and settling heavy on the Dakota's side. That is 200 extra pounds you can actually use, enough for another big guy, a week's worth of groceries, or a load of lumber for the hunting cabin. In the backcountry, that is the difference between making one trip or two. The Dakota does not look like a muscle truck, but it hauls like one. Most pilots grew up thinking the 182 was the king of the job site, but the Dakota's numbers do not lie. When it is time to load up, fill the seats, and top off the tanks, the Piper quietly takes the crown. Useful load is not just a number, it is the whole reason you buy a truck with wings. The Dakota is the sleeper, but on the scales, it is the heavyweight champ. 5,000 feet above sea level, the air thins and every pound counts. 2 planes, both loaded to maximum gross weight, with 4 adults aboard, gear crammed into every inch, and tanks brimming, face the runway. Here, performance isn't theory. It is measured in feet, seconds, and the margin between safe climb and trouble. The Cessna 182 lines up first. Full throttle, prop set, brakes off. The O-470 engine strains, the 3-blade prop clawing at the thin morning air. Acceleration is steady but never brisk. The 182's high wing and big flaps help, but the weight is real. Liftoff comes at just over 1,200 feet. Climb rate settles near 700 feet per minute, sometimes a touch less. The nose feels heavy, the angle shallow. There is no room for error. Each of the 3 runs delivers nearly identical numbers. The POH table matches reality, confirmed by GPS and CSV logs. Reliable, predictable, but at this altitude and weight, there is no extra in reserve. Next, the Dakota takes its place. Throttle forward, the Lycoming O-540 roaring, the 2-blade prop spinning up. The Dakota surges ahead, the nose lifting sooner, airborne by 1,100 feet. Climb rate holds near 900 feet per minute, even with the same load. The difference is immediate. The Dakota does not just leave the ground, it climbs with authority. 3 runs, 3 sets of data, all consistent. The logs and measured tables show what the seat of your pants already knows. Extra torque and lower power loading make a difference when the air is thin and the payload is heavy. Side by side, the numbers tell the story. The 182 claws upward, dependable but pressed to its limits. The Dakota gains 100, sometimes 200 extra feet before the field ends. On paper, the POH specs look close, but in real conditions, the gap widens. At maximum gross weight, at high density altitude, the line between a safe climb and a close call is razor thin. Both planes can do the job, but the Dakota's margin is more than comfort. It is the edge that matters when the runway runs out and the load cannot wait. Drag a loaded 182 or Dakota onto a gravel bar or ranch strip, and the story stops being about numbers. It is about what breaks, what bends, and what that costs on payday. The Cessna 182 stands tall, literally. High wings, big tires, and plenty of prop clearance mean you can roll over ruts, rocks, and cow patties without sweating a prop strike. That is the F-150 at work. Clearance for days, forgiving when you misjudge a mound or drop a wheel in a hole. But there is a catch. The 182's nose gear is bolted straight to the firewall, and that firewall is the weak link. Come in a little hot, bounce the nose, or hit a hidden rock, and you get the infamous Skylane dimple, a wrinkled firewall. It is not just a cosmetic scar. Mechanics know the drill. A firewall repair eats between 50 and 100 labor hours, sometimes more, and you are looking at a 5-figure bill before the airplane is even back in service. That is downtime and dollars out the window, especially if you are flying for a living. The Dakota, on the other hand, sits lower. That is the Silverado SS stance, sleek and fast, but closer to the ground. On pavement, it is no issue, but on a rough field, the lower nose and prop mean you are always watching for that one rock that will bite. The Dakota's nose gear rides on an oleo strut, softer and more forgiving over bumps, but it is a maintenance hog. Shops see these oleos come in for overhaul every 1,000 to 2,000 hours, sometimes sooner if you work it hard. Figure 8 to 12 hours of labor, plus parts, and you will be swapping seals and bushings more often than you would like. Not catastrophic, but it adds up in the logbook and on the invoice. Ask any A and P mechanic who has worked both, and you will hear the same war stories. 1. 182s with wrinkled firewalls after a hard landing in the backcountry. 2. Dakotas on the stand for nose gear overhauls after too many rough strips. It is the cost of doing business, but it is also the price of pushing these trucks to their limits. The 182 forgives more on landing, but when it lets go, it is a big job. The Dakota shrugs off bumps until the seals start leaking, then it is downtime for parts and labor. Neither is bulletproof. Both are built to work, but both demand respect and a fat maintenance fund when you haul heavy and land rough. That is the reality behind the numbers. Out here, the real contest is not just about payload or climb rate. It is about which machine keeps earning when the going gets ugly and how much you are willing to pay to keep it rolling. The real test isn't in the numbers, it's in the mud, the rain, and the parking lot. Loading up a Cessna 182 feels like tossing gear in the back of a crew cab pickup. Two big doors swing wide, the high wing keeps the rain off. You step right in, no acrobatics. Grandma, kids, toolbox, cooler, everyone finds a seat without climbing over each other. The clock is running, but you're barely sweating. Even with 4 adults and a pile of bags, you can load, check belts, and shut the doors in under 2 minutes. High wing shade, flat floor, and a rear bench that actually fits grown men. The 182's cabin is built for the family road trip. Easy in, easy out. Now try the Dakota. 1 door, low wing. The only way in is over the wing, then down into the cabin. The first person in has to fold the seat, duck, and slide into the back. Next comes the awkward shuffle, knees, elbows, someone's foot in your ribs. Loading bags goes through the same door, over the same wing, with the clock still ticking. It's a dance, not a job. If you're hauling a crew or anyone with bad knees, you'll hear about it. The Dakota is a strong hauler, but it makes you work for every pound. Weight and balance is not just paperwork. With 4 big adults and 100 pounds of bags, the center of gravity can creep aft, especially in the Dakota, where the baggage compartment sits behind the rear seats. You check the sheet, double-check the arms, and sometimes you have to move a duffel up front or leave a bag behind. The 182's layout is more forgiving, but you still watch the numbers. At the end of the day, the real cost is not just payload, it's time, sweat, and whether your passengers are grumbling before the engine even starts. Numbers settle arguments when stories can't. On the utility scorecard, sentiment falls away. Payload comes first. The Dakota claims this category outright. Its useful load, typically 1,350 pounds, means 4 adults, full baggage, and enough fuel for real work. The 182, even at its best, trails by about 200 pounds. That difference is not theoretical, it is an extra passenger or a week's worth of supplies. In the world of hauling, that gap matters. The Dakota wears the Load King badge. Speed follows. The Dakota's O-540 engine delivers a cruise of 140 knots, sometimes more with the right touch. The 182 makes a steady 135 knots. Over 100 miles, the Dakota arrives 10 minutes ahead, a small edge that adds up for anyone watching daylight or dollars. Yet, the 182 proves its worth where the pavement ends. High wings and big tires let it handle rough, muddy, or uneven strips the Dakota avoids. Its landing gear shrugs off ruts and rocks. For comfort, the Cessna's 2 wide doors and flat floor make loading easy, people, pets, and gear all in without a struggle. The Dakota's single door and low wing demand more effort every time, stacking the results. Dakota wins on load and speed. The 182 takes rough field and comfort. The full scorecard and raw numbers are available for those who want to compare every detail. Each machine answers a different call. Out here, numbers don't lie. 1,300 pounds of useful load, or a firewall built for punishment. You pick your truck. Today, more backcountry strips and heavier hauls mean every pound and every knot matters. These aren't toys, they're working rigs. In the end, the best heavy hauler is the one that lifts your whole world, no questions asked. Drop your pick in the comments below.